Unveiling God's Plan, the shocking divine transformation of Israel and Iran revealed in Scripture. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The city trembled under the might of Babylon as the temple of Yahweh was desecrated, and the people of Israel, once favored by God, were now captives in a foreign land. Among them was Daniel, a young Hebrew of noble birth, whose heart beat fiercely for his homeland, even as the ruins of Jerusalem burned into his memory. He recalled the prophecies of Jeremiah, who spoke of a future filled with hope and restoration, even amid despair. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. As the sun set over the splendid palaces of Babylon, casting long, dark shadows upon the ground, Daniel found himself summoned to the court of Nebuchadnezzar. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty, and Daniel felt the weight of his people's suffering pressing upon him. Yet amidst the ruins, he believed there was purpose within the chaos. Though surrounded by lavish meats and sweet wines of the royal table, Daniel steadfastly refused to partake, resonating with the covenant laws of Yahweh. Instead, he requested only vegetables and water, symbolizing his commitment to remain true to his heritage. Ashpenaz, the chief of the eunuchs, regarded Daniel with surprise, skeptical of the boy's unusual request. However, witnessing Daniel's radiant faith and exceptional aptitude, he eventually acquiesced, allowing the Hebrew youth to continue his dietary choice. And God's favor upon Daniel was clear. As days turned to weeks, his countenance grew healthier than the others feasting at the king's table. But the winds of Babylon were restless, and Nebuchadnezzar was troubled by dreams that haunted his sleep with visions of chaos. The king sought the wise men of his court, demanding answers, yet none could yield the truth. It was then that Daniel stepped forward, fueled by the Spirit of the Lord. Through divine revelation, he revealed the meaning of the king's dreams, underscoring God's sovereignty over the kingdoms of men and propelling Daniel into a position of influence within the royal court. Meanwhile, whispers of hope emerged from the heart of Persia, where Esther awaited her destiny. The tale of Esther, a captivating Jewess called to be queen, spread through the labyrinth of royal court intrigues. Guided by her cousin Mordecai, she grappled with her identity, pondering how she might have been placed in her royal position for such a time as this. Esther 4 verse 14. As the paths of Daniel and Esther began to intertwine, a divine orchestration was at hand. While fear loomed heavy over the exiled Jewish community, both figures emerged as beacons of faith, wielding courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Prophetic whispers echoed through the hearts of the faithful, igniting a longing for the promises of restoration. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Amidst the court intrigues and the trials of exile, Daniel's faith would soon be tested in unimaginable ways. Faced with the might of Babylon and a king whose wrath could lead to destruction, both Daniel and Esther prepared for a pivotal night of reckoning. In the lion's den, and within the royal chambers of Persia, destiny awaited a destiny bearing the marks of divine intervention. In this grand tapestry of redemption, the question remained, how would the unwavering faith of these chosen servants of Yahweh interweave with God's relentless pursuit of his people? As the dawn broke over the city of Babylon, the clouds of uncertainty lingered, and the hearts of the exiles were grieved by the memory of Jerusalem. Daniel, having earned the favor of the king, remained resolute in his faith, drawing strength from the sacred scriptures. Each new day became a testament to God's faithfulness, even amidst trials that gave rise to fear and doubt. It was in the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign that the king, overwhelmed by visions of a colossal statue, its head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, and legs of iron, again called upon the wise men of his court. But his spirit was clouded, for he sought to understand the meaning of this fearful dream and demanded that they reveal both the dream itself and its interpretation. The wise men trembled and responded with great apprehension, "O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation." Daniel 2 verse 4. Yet Nebuchadnezzar, in his wrath, decreed that unless they revealed both the dream and its meaning, he would rend them limb from limb and make their houses a dunghill. The wise men, exposed and terrified, cried out in desperation, for no man could fulfill such a decree. News of the decree reached Daniel, and he sought the king's counsel, saying, "Give me time, and I will show the interpretation." Daniel 2 verse 16, That night, as Daniel prayed with his companions Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah seeking mercy from the God of heaven, a vision was granted to him. The mystery that troubled the king was unveiled. The following morning, emboldened by the Spirit, Daniel stood before Nebuchadnezzar with humility and confidence, declaring, "Your dream, which you saw, and its interpretation, is not by my own wisdom but by the revelation of the Most High God." Daniel 2 verse 30, with clarity and grace, Daniel narrated the king's dream, unfolding the heavy layers of its meaning. He described the splendor of the statue, emphasizing that each section represented kingdoms to come, the head of gold symbolizing Babylon itself, soon to be followed by the kingdoms of Medes and Persians, and ultimately a divine kingdom that would not be destroyed. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left for another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end. Daniel 2 verse 44, The king, trembling, fell upon his face in awe before Daniel, proclaiming, "Truly, your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries." Daniel 2 verse 47. Thus, in his astonishment, Nebuchadnezzar appointed Daniel to a high position, elevating him over all the wise men and granting him authority across the provinces of Babylon. Yet in Persia, Esther's fate hung precariously like a thread spun into the great tapestry of God's design. The haughty Haman had risen in power, and his heart burned with hatred against the Jews, crafting a decree that would bring calamity upon them. Mordecai urged Esther to act, for her position placed her strategically in the path of destiny. Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Esther 4 verse 14, he implored her, igniting within her a spark of bravery. The courage of Esther intertwining with the faith of Daniel would soon reveal God's sovereign plan to deliver his people, for in the darkest hours of oppression, when despair seemed all-consuming, God was knitting together a story of hope, a tale that would not only change the fate of nations but also fulfill every promise spoken by his prophets. The stage was set, the threads of destiny were being woven. What unexpected acts of divine power and providence awaited the people of Israel in their quest for restoration? And how would Esther's courage in the court of the king illuminate God's unfathomable plan? As the sun rose over Babylon, its rays pierced the shadows that clung to the hearts of the captives. Daniel, now esteemed by Nebuchadnezzar, carried within him the knowledge of divine mysteries that had been revealed in his dream. Yet, while he enjoyed favor in a foreign land, the reality of his people's plight weighed heavily on his spirit. Days passed, and the noise of idolatrous feasts echoed through the halls of the palace, where the king celebrated his newfound understanding of Judah's God. But amidst the revelry, a whisper of anxiety stirred in Daniel's heart. He knew that even the mightiest kingdom would falter before the Lord of hosts. With a heart steadfast in prayer, Daniel sought the face of God, pouring out his soul in supplication for his people. It was then that the Lord delivered another vision to Daniel, a vision not of gold or silver, but one filled with the stormy sea and a great beast rising from the depths. This vision brought fear to the prophet's heart, for it spoke of future kingdoms that would rise and fall, consuming one another like wildfire. He saw beasts that represented empires of brutal power, nations driven by greed and vengeance, trampling upon the remnants of truth and righteousness. In the midst of his trembling, a voice echoed within him, "Fear not, for the Ancient of Days shall sit in judgment, and the victory of his saints is assured." Encouraged by the promise of God, Daniel found his resolve renewed. He understood that even as empires clashed, God remained sovereign and unchanging. In a distant court, Queen Esther felt a turmoil within her spirit as well. At that very moment, Haman plotted the destruction of her people. The decree he crafted had been sealed with the king's signet, an irrevocable command that loomed like a dark cloud over the nation of Israel. As she prepared for an audience with King Ahasuerus, she reflected upon Mordecai's admonition. "If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther 4 verse 14. With each step towards the throne, courage intertwined with her trembling heart as she clutched the royal scepter and approached the king. In a moment suspended between fear and faith, she revealed her identity, invoking the king's compassion. Though to cross the threshold uninvited could cost her life, Esther's heart echoed Daniel's certainty that God's hand was guiding her steps. As the adversary's schemes began to unravel, a divine turning of the tide commenced in both Babylon and Persia. The very fate of nations hovered on the brink of divine intervention, as the boundaries between kingdoms began to blur under the might of the Almighty. Could it be that the Lord was orchestrating a fusion of destinies among his people? The hearts of kings began to soften, while the cries of the oppressed rose like incense before the throne. God was indeed at work. Little did the people know, Esther's boldness and Daniel's faithfulness were but pieces in a grander puzzle, revealing a sovereign plan set in motion. The deliverance of Israel would ultimately intertwine with the destiny of all nations, drawing them toward the one true king, for in that very moment, an unexpected revelation awaited. God's promise was not just for the exile's return but for a renewed covenant, awakening a remnant who would rise to proclaim his glory in the fullness of time. What would become of the nations when the ultimate deliverer appeared? The seeds of hope had been planted, and the world was about to witness a divine transformation like never before. In the days that followed, Daniel continued to seek the face of the Lord. By the banks of the Euphrates, he pored over scrolls containing the words of the prophets, the promises of restoration echoing through the ages. The Lord had spoken to Israel through Jeremiah, declaring that after 70 years, he would return them to their land. As the reality of the time approaching dawned upon him, Daniel trembled, both with fear and anticipation. Meanwhile, in Shushan, the news of Esther's bold plea reached the high offices of the Persian court. The decree that Haman had forged sank deeper into the hearts of the nation, stirring unrest among the Jews. The cries of God's chosen people ascended as a lamentation, piercing the heavens. Mordecai, clad in sackcloth and ashes, walked through the streets commanding the attention of all. The time for mourning is upon us, yet in the face of despair, shall we not remember our God? He cried. Even as despair threatened to consume them, whispers began to circulate amongst the people. Perhaps this is the season of divine reckoning. Perhaps the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is raising a standard against our enemies. The spirit of unity stirred their hearts, for they knew that God was a refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. Psalm 46 verse 1. In the palace, Esther's heart was troubled. Clothed in royal garments but burdened by the fate of her people, she approached the king once again, praying that the hand of God would soften his heart. If I perish, she resolved, a brave declaration echoing the depths of her spirit's resolve. And as she stood before Ahasuerus, he looked upon her not with the eye of judgment but with a countenance rich in favor. What is your request, Queen Esther? He asked, extending the golden scepter. My king, she responded, her voice trembling yet fervent, if it pleases you, grant me my life and spare my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed. With these words, the air in the court shifted as powerful beings in heavenly realms took notice. Simultaneously, back in Babylon, the vision that had once filled Daniel with fear began to clarify. The beasts he had seen in darkness were not in vain, they were the shimmering facade of kingdoms rising, only to fall under the might of the Ancient of Days. He deciphered the meaning. Nations that sought to assert dominion without righteousness would ultimately be brought low. The tension mounted, for both Daniel and Esther stood as catalysts of divine purpose. Yearning and fear coursed through them, invoking deep prayers that the promises of God might now unfold before their eyes. They understood that in moments of divine silence, God was still at work, orchestrating his sovereign plan to gather a remnant. Then it happened. The king's voice rang in the court. Who is he, and where is the one who has dared to do this? A sense of dread mixed with hope ignited all hearts. As Esther revealed Haman's plot, the backdrop of evil dimmed against the sovereign light of divine justice. In Babylon, with eyes turned heavenward, Daniel prayed fervently, O Lord, hear my prayer. Reveal your mercy on your people and even on the nations trembling around us. A profound silence settled, as if the eternal realm awaited a response. At that very moment, in the depths of the unseen, God prepared a finer destiny as he often does amidst turmoil. The lives of his chosen, the threads of their destinies entwined, poised on the edge of a divine revelation, the promise of restoration was not merely for despair but for a magnificent demonstration of glory. What did this mean for the future of nations? In quiet anticipation, the people awaited a transformation that would echo through the ages. "For I know the plans I have for you," declared the Lord, "plans to give you a future and a hope." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. The dawn of a new age was on the horizon, but what awaited beyond the veil of their current struggles was a mystery yet to be unveiled, revealing a sovereign plan that only the Almighty could orchestrate. As the dawn broke over the walls of Shushan, a stillness enveloped the court, pregnant with unspoken revelations and divine implications. Esther stood before King Ahasuerus, her heart racing, yet imbued with heavenly courage. The royal court held its breath, bound by the gravity of her words. With eyes watchful and hearts trembling, council and courtiers waited for the king's decree. With a brow furrowed in thought, Ahasuerus demanded, "What shall be done to Haman, who has plotted such wickedness?" The air crackled with electric tension, and the cries of the Jews rallied in spirit. Esther, emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord, replied, "Let him be hanged upon the gallows he prepared for Mordecai." Her voice carried the power of heaven's judgment. Around her, the collective breath of the Jewish people surged in a moment of hope. Meanwhile, in Babylon, Daniel continued his fervent prayers for his brethren. You could feel the weight of their plight as he sought guidance, his heart yearning for revelation. "How long, O Lord, until you fulfill your promise? Will you remain silent forever, or shall we see your hand move once again?" He pleaded, understanding that the cries of a united people could move the heart of God and the heavens. The Lord surveyed the tapestry of his people's faithfulness and despair. The angels whispered amongst themselves, for they understood the significance of these intercessions. A golden thread of divine promise began to weave through time, heralding a turning point for Israel and all nations, a pivotal shift that would alter the course of history. Now Haman's fate was sealed, the gallows loomed, an emblem of justice not merely against one wicked man, but a harbinger of divine deliverance for the Jewish people. As news spread like wildfire through Shushan, a spirit of jubilation began to rise among the exiled Jews. They gathered in the streets to proclaim, "The Lord is good, his mercy endures forever." Psalm 136 verse 1. It was as if the sound of a new song echoed through the land, one of hope and resilience. Meanwhile, on the banks of the Euphrates, Daniel had received a vision. The fleeting images of empires clashing and tumbling echoed prophetic words from the lips of the ancients. He saw the stone cut without hands, rolling forth to crush the statue of earthly power, representing the kingdoms designed by man's ambition. In that moment, the Spirit spoke to him, "This is but a foreshadowing of my kingdom that shall come. Nations will rise and fall, but my words shall endure." Awakening from the vision, Daniel's heart surged with the weight of responsibility. He understood that God's sovereign plan would culminate not just in the survival of Israel but in a revelation that would affect all who called upon his name. The scattering of his people would be reversed, and they would be gathered, displaying a testament of faith for future generations. Back in the palace, Esther's resolve solidified like iron. She understood that this moment was not only about the salvation of her people but a fulcrum upon which the fate of nations would pivot. For such a time as this, she whispered under her breath, feeling the echoes of destiny wrap around her heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows upon the land, both Daniel and Esther sensed the approaching dawn of divine intervention. God's plan lay intricately woven within their stories, each participating in a greater narrative written with providence and purpose. Then came a voice deep and resonant from heaven declaring, "Watch, O earth! For I am about to do a new thing. I will not only deliver my people but call unto the nations. The time of reckoning is at hand, and through you, O Israel, the light of salvation shall shine bright." What awaited the children of God? What glory and wonders would he choose to unveil next? Both places, Shushan and Babylon, held their breath, for the wheel of history was turning, and within it lay the hidden wonders of God's sovereign plan. The curtain of time swayed, and in the still moments of waiting, the heart of God prepared for the next astonishing chapter of his redemptive story. As the sun rose upon Shushan, the air was thick with a mixture of dread and expectation. The gallows, a grim monument to Haman's treachery, stood guards over a nation poised for liberation. News of Esther's courage spread through the streets, igniting hope like a spark to dry kindling. Yet, how much darkness must be driven away before the light would hold sway? in the palace, Haman was seized and brought forth, his face pale with the weight of impending judgment. Ahasuerus, fixated upon the man who had sought to destroy his queen and her kin, bellowed, "Let the decree be made. Let justice roll down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream." Amos 5 verse 24. Esther, with her heart now a vessel of divine purpose, remained steadfast, her prayers intertwining with those of her people. "O Lord, you who have called me to this place, grant that I may be an instrument for your glory." Her spirit soared as she recalled the words of Jeremiah, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord," Jeremiah 29 verse 11. As the gallows loomed nearer, the entire city of Shushan buzzed with anxious anticipation. Mothers whispered tales of the ancient covenant, fathers spoke of deliverance foretold, and children awoke dreams of a brighter tomorrow. The Jews congregated in every corner, a tapestry of prayers woven into the very fabric of the air, each voice lifted in supplication. "Deliver us, Lord, from the hand of the wicked." Their chorus echoed. At that very moment, a shadow fell over Babylon, where Daniel pondered deeply upon his visions. The streams of time flowed forward like a river, revealing an intertwined destiny. "The time of the end is near," he murmured, perceiving God's hand shaping not merely his people but the world itself. "For his kingdom shall be a never-ending dominion," he realized, recalling the vision of the stone that was not cut with hands. Suddenly, as if thunder from the heavens, a voice thundered in his spirit, "Rise up, O prophet. Your intercessions, like incense before me, stir even the hearts of kings." His mind raced with the implications, for he sensed a mighty conjunction of destinies shifting not just for Israel but for Persia itself. Back in Shushan, as the sun set and darkness fell like a blanket, Haman found his fate sealed upon the gallows. The moment of truth had arrived. The people gasped in collective awe and horror as shadows danced upon the wooden structure. Tender hearts sought comfort in the Lord. "You are our refuge and fortress, our God, in whom we trust." Psalm 91 verse 2. The Jewish exiles, hardened by Esther's bravery, felt a swell of purpose rise among them. They became as a living testament, aflame with courage and a fiery hope that stirred even Ahasuerus to reflect upon the divinity of their cause. In the stillness that followed, voices whispered, "This is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it." Psalm 118 verse 24. As night draped its cloak upon the weary world, a sudden revelation gripped Esther once more. The Spirit descended upon her, and in that sacred moment, she knew for such a time as this, the Lord has positioned me not just for this act of deliverance, but for the raising of his people from despair. Who could have foreseen such a moment? How intricately the threads of fate had woven the story of redemption. In the hearts of all gathered the hopeless, the shattered, the weary. A flicker of divine illumination began to shine. As Haman's demise was sealed in absolute punishment, the whisper of God resounded with clarity. "Look upon my people, for I shall raise up a remnant, a beacon amidst the nations. Not merely for survival but for a transformation that shall resonate through generations." And in that profound moment of revelation, Esther and Daniel stood poised on the precipice of history. What divine wonders awaited them? What greater plan would spring forth from the ashes of despair into the vast expanse of hope? The promise hung in the air, as fragrant as incense, ready to unveil the next chapter of God's sovereign design. In the stillness of the night that blanketed Shushan, the hearts of the exiled Jews reverberated with an unsettling mixture of joy and uncertainty. As Haman's lifeless body swung upon the gallows, shadows of fear took flight, yet the promise of deliverance loomed larger than ever. The air crackled with a divine tension, for mercy and judgment intertwined in a dance of redemption. Esther, now fully aware of her role in God's grand design, felt the weight of her people's gaze. "O Lord," she whispered, her heart stirred with a reverent urgency, "turn the hearts of our oppressors and cause them to see your mighty hand at work." She fervently prayed along with the remnant of Israel, invoking their ancient covenant. "For you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head." Psalm 3 verse 3. As dawn approached, the tumult of the city grew louder, an expanse of voices echoing through the streets like waves crashing upon a shore. The once timid exiles began to lift their heads, emboldened by the Spirit's stirring among them. A decree rang out through the royal halls: "Let there be an edict for the salvation of the Jews throughout the land. Let it be known that they shall defend themselves against those who seek their harm." The king, though bewildered, was moved by the spirit of his brave queen and the fervor of her people. He granted their request, "May the name of these Jews be remembered, not as pestilence but as a people, chosen and favored by the Almighty." Such words were like fire igniting hope in dry hearts, as the citizens of Shushan marveled at the sudden reversal of fate. Yet beyond Shushan, in the shadows of Babylon, a solemn gathering took place among the wise men and leaders of Persia. They sensed turbulence brewing, not just from the decree but from the profound change that had taken root in the hearts of their king. Daniel, now wiser through years of experience and vision, stood amidst them. His voice, though steady, carried the weight of impending transformation. "Brothers, we stand upon the brink of a turning point foretold by the prophets. The God of Israel has not forgotten his people." The leaders exchanged glances filled with apprehension and curiosity. "What can we expect, O man of God? What prophecy lies just beyond our sight?" They pressed him, with a steadfast gaze. Daniel declared, "As it is written, thus says the Lord, I will bring them from the north country, and gather them from the ends of the earth." Jeremiah 31 verse 8. The Lord's hand is stretched forth to not only save but to reshape the identity of nations. The hearts of kings are poised for a clash of faith and power. Back in Shushan, Esther gathered her kinsmen, their faces brightened by the first light of day. Today is a day of victory. Our plight is marked not by death but by the promise of life. God has turned the battle against our enemies. Let us gather in prayer and feast, for the Lord is our deliverer. Every heart responded with an echo of praise. Beneath the shadow of Haman's gallows, they united, proclaiming the goodness of the Lord and recalling his promises. "I will rescue you, and you will be my people, and I will be your God." Jeremiah 30 verse 22. The gallows now stood as a testimony of victory, emboldening them to rise above fear. As the day unfolded, the echo of unity resonated through Shushan, a hope ignited that would spread to the far corners of Persia. Yet, even amidst their rejoicing, the winds of prophecy blew softly, whispering of a far greater design unfolding beyond the horizon. In that sacred gathering of exiles, Esther suddenly felt the prompting of the Spirit once more. "What lies ahead, O Lord? What is the fullness of your plan for your people?" And in her heart, she sensed the stirring of a revelation that would break the chains, not only binding Israel but altering the course of Persia and beyond. What did the sovereign Lord intend next? A divine transformation awaited, woven intricately into the tapestry of nations. As the Jewish exiles lifted their voices in praise, the stage was set for that which would change the world. A remnant ready to rise. As the sun ascended over Shushan, its light poured through the windows of the kingdom, casting a golden hue upon the faces of Esther and her people. The brightness of the day mirrored the hope now swelling in each heart, an unmistakable sign of God's favor. "Gather the people," Esther commanded, her voice resolute. "Let all who are called by the name of the Lord assemble, for we shall declare his wonders together." The streets filled with the joyous cries of men, women, and children, pulsing with a newfound strength. The Jews, once cowering in fear, now marched with conviction, their spirits lifted by the promise of their God who had declared, "I will not forsake you." Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. Esther took her place among them, reminding them of the sacred history that had woven them together, a history laden with covenantal love and divine intervention. "Remember, beloved ones, how the Lord led our ancestors through the Red Sea. How he provided in the desert. For with every trial, he has proven faithful." Her words resonated, igniting a fervor in their hearts, for they knew that the God of their fathers was about to act mightily on their behalf. Meanwhile, in the palace, King Ahasuerus pondered the profound change within the kingdom. His nights had been filled with dreams, visions unknowable yet unmistakable in their significance. What was this stirring within him? His heart, once hesitant, now leaned toward favoring the Jewish people. He summoned his advisors, eager to understand the roots of this unprecedented shift. "Tell me, what wisdom can you offer concerning the fate of these exiles?" One wise man, who had long studied the law of the Jews, stepped forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "O king, it is said among the people that their God fights for them. If there is a divine hand at work, then it is wise to align our strategies with their welfare. The edict may indeed save us from turmoil." As the king contemplated these words, he felt a surge of urgency course through him. Let it be known across the provinces, my support for the Jews shall be unyielding. He envisioned alliances forming, nations converging upon this extraordinary movement, for he sensed that God's plan was larger than his understanding. Back in the streets of Shushan, Esther's exultation swelled as the people joined in unity. Let us proclaim a day of feasting and celebration. For our sorrow has been turned to joy. And as they rejoiced, they did not forget the darkness that lingered, nor the misfortune of Haman's lineage. In a moment of prophetic clarity, Esther turned and declared, let us not only rejoice in our deliverance but seek healing for our enemies. For even the mighty shall fall, but with our compassion, may our God's mercy prevail. Her words struck a chord, hearts softened, and prayers began to rise from a place of deep yearning for reconciliation and grace. However, the winds of heaven were whispering louder. The very fabric of Persia felt the tremors of change. In distant Babylon, Daniel sensed the shifting tides and prepared himself for the challenge ahead. The time to act is upon us, he spoke to his gathered followers. God's intentions are crystal clear. Expect the unexpected, for what he prepares shall reverberate throughout generations. And as murmurs of Esther's influence spread beyond Shushan, an ancient prophecy beckoned from the scrolls of old, I shall gather them, for they shall be my people, and I shall be their God. Ezekiel 37 verse 23. As the echoes of the past mingled with the present realities, a profound truth began to emerge. The Lord was not merely rescuing his people, he was realigning the very course of nations through them. Esther stood before her people, remembering those visions of hope yet discovering new paths converging upon his promise. What was God orchestrating in the threads of her life and the destiny of her people? Thus, the tapestry of divine intention unfurled wider than she could have imagined, drawing all eyes towards one climactic revelation. Would the nation of Persia also come to recognize the one true God? The hearts of many lay at the precipice of belief, waiting for the final brushstroke of the Master's hand. What awaited them in the unfolding of God's divine plan? A new exodus? A revelation of truth? The Spirit breathed a mystery only he could unveil. As the dawn broke over Shushan, the air was thick with anticipation and hope. Esther, buoyed by the fervor of her people, ascended to the palace once more. She knew that her God had not led her this far to abandon his promise. With every step, the weight of the task before her pressed down, yet she felt an undeniable strength surging from within. "O Lord," she whispered, "guide me in this hour, may your purpose be fulfilled." In the royal hall, King Ahasuerus regarded the gathered nobles, pondering the new edicts that would alter the course of their kingdom. "Let our people flourish," he commanded, his voice echoing. "Thus, we shall protect them, ensuring their laws are upheld." Esteemed advisors nodded in agreement, marking a significant shift in the land of Persia, yet uncertainty lingered in the hearts of many. As Esther entered, a hush fell over the assembly. "Your Majesty," she proclaimed, her voice steady yet tender, "I come with a matter that weighs upon the soul of our people. A decree issued against us has driven fear into our hearts, yet our God is stronger than man's law. Let us converse on how to turn our trials into triumphs." The king leaned forward, intrigued. "What does the queen request? If your people are indeed favored by the Almighty, shall we not heed his call? Speak to the hearts of your nobles," she urged. "Let us appeal for a reversal of the decree that sought our end. Through compassion and understanding, we might heal the rifts between our nations. For blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." Matthew 5 verse 9. Her words stirred the hearts present, igniting a fire of courage. Yet lurking in the shadows was Haman's legacy, a dark cloud of vengeance that threatened to overshadow their hopes. The king's advisors shifted uneasily at the mere mention of the man who once wielded so much power against the Jews. Suddenly, news of unrest rippled through the streets of Shushan. Discontent among the populace grew in whispers, as some favored Haman's ways, fearing the shift in allegiance toward the Jews. In this tense atmosphere, the name of Esther shone bright as both champion and arrow. "The very lively pulse of this kingdom must beat in harmony with our intentions," she declared, turning the nobility's gaze toward unity. Yet, even as the plan unfolded, an unknown destiny loomed. In the night, darkness encroached upon Haman's remaining allies in secret councils, plotting calamity anew. Their hearts were hardened, and betrayal hung in the air like a bitter fruit, ripe for plucking. They whispered of old grudges and stagnant fears, scheming to reclaim the throne of malice that once ruled their hearts, and thus, amidst the divine orchestration, a figure stood prepared in Babylon. Daniel once more sought the Lord. "Great and mighty God, reveal your truth unto us," he cried, grasping the scrolls of prophecy. His spirit discerned the path. What is to come shall reveal the hearts of kings and the redemption of the faithful. In Shushan, as Esther rallied her people toward hope, they united in prayer and thanksgiving, reaching toward heaven. They did not bend a knee to despair, for their eyes were fixed on the promise of divine intervention. And as the light of day began to fade, a prophecy lingered in the air, foretelling a new awakening. "Behold, I am doing a new thing, now it springs forth, do you not perceive it?" Isaiah 43 verse 19. As Esther met the gaze of her people, a storm surged in the spirit, foreshadowing a mighty clash between darkness and light. Would the hearts of Persia be turned towards the one true God? The tapestry of history was about to unravel further, and the ultimate revelation of divine sovereignty still awaited its appointed time. What unexpected power would rise to confront the shadows looming in Shushan? The world held its breath, awaiting the unfolding of God's sovereign plan. As the day of reckoning dawned upon Shushan, the air trembled with an expectation that could be felt to the core of both the Jewish exiles and their oppressors. The gallows, a monument to Haman's treachery, now stood as a symbol of hope and divine justice. Esther, emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord, prepared to face the king once more, her heart anchored in the promise of God's deliverance. Clad in royal splendor yet humble in spirit, she took her place before Ahasuerus, ready to speak life into the words that would shift the tides of destiny. "O my king," she began, her voice a tranquil stream cutting through tension, "though my heart is filled with fear, I stand firm on the faith of my ancestors. Our people face imminent peril, yet our God has proven faithful and true. Please grant us reprieve from the decree that seeks our destruction." The king, sensing the weight of her request, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What else do you ask, Queen Esther? For a day like this to arrive, surely must bear profound significance." With each word, Esther felt the presence of Almighty God surrounding her. "I appeal for mercy not only for my people but for all who inhabit this realm. Let not our suffering end in resentful vengeance, but instead, may compassion and unity reign. May we together forge a future filled with peace." At her plea, the assembly stirred, for in that moment, they recognized the heart of the matter. The very nature of true leadership lies in a willingness to forgive, to reconcile. The word sent whispers of realization through the room, drawing the king's focus to the legacy of benevolence he could shape. Before Ahasuerus could respond, the names of Haman's conspirators echoed through Shushan. Those embers of darkness flickered persistently, seeking to ignite old grudges anew. A tense silence fell over the court. Old alliances and fears tested the resolve of unity that Esther so desperately sought to forge. "Let justice flow like a river," declared the king, as he rose from his throne, his voice full of authority and grace. "Let it be that Haman, who plotted evil against the Jews, shall meet retribution this very day." The crowd gasped, and shouts of agreement erupted, reclaiming hope as the king's decree took effect. Just as the gallows stood as a monument to treachery, the binding of Haman's spirit served as a liberated vow for a nation beckoning revival. As he was seized, the darkness over Shushan was lifted, replaced by the light of God's covenant promise, shining brightly upon the assembled multitude. Meanwhile in Babylon, Daniel was fervently praying, driven by the urgency of the times. His spirit erupted in praise as he recognized the hand of God moving mightily across the kingdoms. "O Lord, you have declared that you will gather your people, and we believe," he exclaimed, his heart swelling with belief in God's covenant fulfillment. Visions danced before his eyes, revealing a future that glimmered with the promise of restoration. "Lift your heads, O people of Israel. For he who sits enthroned in the heavens will not forsake his own. Even the despots shall tremble before the sovereignty of the God who reigns." In unison, the exiles of both Babylon and Shushan began to lift their voices, crying out to the one who had answered prayers from every corner of the earth. The Spirit of the Lord ignited a fire that spread like wildfire throughout the lands, uniting hearts in unprecedented faith. As Esther returned to her people, she bore news of Haman's fate. Celebration erupted like a fresh crescendo in a symphony long awaited. "Let us feast and remember," she proclaimed, her heart thrumming with joy, for the Lord has turned our mourning into dancing and our cries into joyous songs. The people gathered together, rejoicing and singing hymns of gratitude, proclaiming the mighty hand of Yahweh. We are a people favored by the Almighty. His mercy endures forever. From the shadows of despair, a new identity emerged, not defined by past sufferings but anchored in divine providence. Let this be a day to commemorate, Esther decreed, not only our deliverance but the unity of all who seek the God of Israel. For he has chosen us, and as we remember him, we echo the call of remembrance across generations. In the brilliance of their celebrations, a prophetic moment unfolded, a vision of hope intertwined with the resolve to reach not just for freedom but for future generations. Haman's demise now stood as a declaration. God was breaking down barriers, lifting heads toward the light of salvation. At that very moment, all across the land, hearts once filled with fear now pulsing with purpose, united in a new song. For I know the plans I have for you, resonated the ancient promise, as the thrumming of hope paved the way for every soul seeking peace amid tumult. God's redemptive plan was unveiling before their very eyes to gather his people not only from captivity but to draw forth a remnant that would proclaim his name among the nations, and thus, the days that were to come showed the fulfillment of divine encounters sewn into the fabric of history, a tapestry of hope that would reverberate throughout time. As the sun set, casting a golden hue upon the jubilant assembly, the hearts of the faithful whispered one final plea: O Lord, let your light shine in us, that we may become vessels of your mercy and love. It is the divine story of Israel, intricately woven into the fabric of his unfolding plan, a delight to generations, and an invitation to those who will believe. To share in this powerful testimony, you must subscribe now. Help us spread God's word. Leave a like to let others join in this journey of faith. Comment with your reflections. How has this story enriched your walk with God? Don't wait even one more second. Share this inspiring message with at least 5 friends who need to hear the truth for today. This is the moment to help broadcast biblical truth across the world.